Benchmark Business Sales and Valuations proudly presents the Meaning Business Podcast, hosted by Bruce Kudry and Peter Spinder. This is the podcast for anyone serious about buying, selling, and preparing your business for maximum growth. So about a week ago, I got the shits with my pantry. I opened the door, and there's jelly beans all over the floor, there's spilt rice, there's dead little bugs, and I'm like, oh, I've had enough of this, kids going right, and I'm looking at the pantry, and it's just full of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what's in there, it's just stuff. So
it's all accumulated.
It all accumulated, you go to the shops, and I think to myself, what do I need? Oh, I need some more beans, I need another can of tomatoes, I need this, that, and the other. So I'm like, okay, spend a couple of hours cleaning it. So I started cleaning it. Kids came home from school and they look around. They're like, oh, Dad, you did a big shopping trip. I know. I'm like, no. This is all from the pantry. I had probably no less than 12 big cans of tomatoes and about 20 cans of beans and all these sort of things that just hiding there, bags and bags of flour and rice and all this sort of stuff. The amount of food that we ended up throwing out because it was just sitting there is extraordinary.
Yeah. What a shame.
So I cleaned it out. Mm-hmm. And now it's nice and clean and pristine. And now I've got full visibility. So I've done it in a way that I walk into the pantry and I've got full visibility of what I've got in stock. What do I need? So that way, when I go to the shops now, I don't need to keep buying the same thing over and over and then getting in the same situation where I've now got tons of stuff that's out of stock. Now, what's interesting about this and tying it to the business point of view is I remember a couple of years ago, new client engaged with a manufacturing business south of Brisbane. And the guy calls us in for a digital transformation type activity, and he wanted to get it ready for sale in a few years' time. Yeah, usual sort of stuff. And they were doing a tour of the warehouse and the factory floor. Everything's going good, and just showing us the setup. And on the left-hand side, there's all this stock. He's just explained how he's controlling the stock using pieces of paper. So that alone was, that was already a red flag. And I'm looking around, and I see, there's a mezzanine up the top. I'm like, so... let's call him Bob. Bob, what's up there? He's like, just some things. I'm thinking, no, what's up there? Show me. So I convinced him to take me up to the mezzanine and look around, and there's just boxes of stuff. I'm like, Bob, what's all this? Is this the stock that's replacing the stock that's downstairs? And then he sheepishly said to me, look, to be honest with you, this is all old and excess stock. I'm like, what do you mean old and excess? He's like, well, the issue we've got, and this is why you're here, is because it's all pieces of paper. We often don't know what we've got in stock. So we've got this bad habit of just ordering, just random people in the business order. So not just the business owner, but other people are ordering stock, comes in, they might put it on the floor, someone might pick it up, place it somewhere else, they're losing track of stuff. And he said a lot of this stuff, unfortunately, we can't even sell because they're for outdated products. Products have, updated.
Moved on.
And I'm like, okay, so how much is this worth? And it's like, about $1 million. I'm like, excuse me? About $1 million? I'm like, you're joking. No. I said, so you've paid for this, haven't you? He's like, yeah. Okay. So you're telling me you've got $1 million cash sitting up here in the mezzanine.
Gathering dust,
and that could be sitting in your bank account, your personal bank account, because that's your cash sitting there. He's like, yep. Okay, understood. So, as much as this topic might sound boring, stock control, the reality is that it is one of the fundamental levers in a product-oriented business.
Absolutely.
Where managing stock can be, looked at as a stock as an asset that generates an income and generates wealth, it adds value, or it could become a liability where the stock, especially when the stock is either one that can go off, so it's a food product, chemical, or where the stock is actually for a particular product where the range changes every 6 months or 12 months, like mobile phones. And if you buy 1 million cases for this mobile phone of mine, well, in 12 months' time, you're not going to need it.
Yeah.
So the new model's out.
Yeah. And in business, retail businesses, stock is a huge management tool.
Absolutely.
You can have too much or too little. You can have stock which goes out of date, particularly in fashion. Yep. You can have stock that you've paid the wrong price for, or stock can be affected by currency exchange rates. If you're in certain businesses and you're ordering stock from overseas, that's where your supplier is. Right. You might order at this price. The Australian dollar changes, it gets landed. It's either too dear, or you might get lucky and you're going to make more money because it's come in cheaper. Often not the case. So managing stock in business is just such a minefield for many people.
Absolutely. And it's not just managing the stock itself. Like you said, talking about price. In some business models or some industries, the price varies all the time. It's like because of the currency fluctuations of what fuel might be.
Yeah.
And so I've seen this happen, especially in retail, where someone buys a particular product at a particular price, but the price they're selling it at hasn't been adjusted for 12 months.
Oh, yeah.
But the price has crept up over 12 months, and they don't realize that they actually aren't making any more money on that product, or they're just making something. And then they're wondering why the bottom line is so slim. They might be turning over 2-3 million.
Yeah.
But there's nothing left at the end of the day because of poor practices tied back to stock.
Have you ever seen this? This used to happen in the 80s when interest rates were high. People would buy a heap of stock because the price was low.
Yep.
But they'd be buying it on an overdraft, and the margin on that stock might be, say, 30%, but they're paying 18% interest.
Yes.
Have you seen
Yes.
So, managing your stock levels is a really interesting challenge for business owners, because you've got these two opposing forces, right? On one hand, you've got this mentality, which I think is largely correct. So the best retailers carry a lot of stock. And there's this mentality. When I started in retail in 82, 83, the mantra was stack them high and watch them fly. Giant service stations. So put big stacks of Coke cans or whatever the product was in the middle of the shop, oil for Shell oil, I sold Shell oil. And the more you put in there, the more you'd sell. You had to be bold, but you stack them high, watch them fly. And if you didn't have it, you couldn't sell it. So, in certain businesses, if you're a tyre retailer, you never try for a truck or a tractor, you can't sell it. The guy's got it, will sell it, and he'll keep selling them over and over and over. So if you don't have it, you can't sell it. Stack them high, watch them fly. So that's pulling you towards this mentality of, I've got to carry inventory. I've got to carry a fair bit of stock. And if you look at the very best retailers, in my opinion, the leaders in their field in retail, usually they've got plenty of stock, and they've got the latest stock. So I'm talking about boat retailers and motorcycle retailers and outdoor furniture retailers, or furniture retailers generally. They're bold. They'll just stock it up, and they'll have the stuff. And if you want it, you got to go to them. So if it's the latest motorbike, this dealership's only guys that have got it, and people go to them and they'll come back again because they've got the stock. On the other hand, you can get caught because you can have too much stock, or the price can fluctuate, or the market can die, or whatever. So stock management is such
it's a fine thing itself. It's hard to learn. Because you got to know, forecasting what's going to happen in an industry, the trends, economic, environmental impacts. So, for example, when COVID hit, I've got one particular client who was doing business in China, and he had a contact in Wuhan. Literally when things were happening in Wuhan, before we even found out about it over here in Australia, he already knew that there was something happening through this, the word of mouth situation. And he was importing large amounts of chemicals. And so he thought, okay, well, this could lead to something big in catastrophe. I better order a large supply. And he did. He ordered a large quantity, managed to get it to the country, landed to his warehouse. And then, of course, COVID hit. And in the space of a few months, most retailers ran out of this particular product. He ended up becoming the only supplier in Australia, and he made absolute mozza on it. So that was the right timing, having the right information, but it could have gone.
Yeah, exactly.
It could have gone the other way.
Yeah,
because that was we're talking millions of dollars worth.
Yeah, it could have been a bad decision.
Tied up.
So, and I just mentioned before, you've got to be bold. So part of the stock management, particularly in retail process, is that you need to be boldly confident about how you're going to manage that stock. And I think you need to have a plan B. So your mate, he buys all that stock from China. He's got it there. Fortunately for him, supply tightens. He's got the stock. He can sell it. But if it didn't go that way, what was his plan B? How would he get out of that? What could he do? What's his exit strategy?
It's so at least another example, a manufacturing business that was started here in Queensland, got acquired by an American company. The American parent company then enforced the Australian arm to buy up a whole heap of this inventory, and it was agricultural equipment, machinery. So the business did, the Australian arm did, and then we hit drought. And all the equipment just sat there in the yard, and I saw this physically rotting away, rusting away, millions of dollars worth of machinery and equipment. And the business was actually, it was on the verge of folding the Australian arm because, well, it's so dry, no one's buying anything. Yeah. So they were like, well, what do we do? And the backup plan there, we ended up working with Grays Online and the auction house and putting things to auction, anything that was super rusted, just take them off, recycle as steel, anything you could use as secondhand parts, keep them, and that's it.
Yeah.
Business did end up collapsing.
Yeah.
And so that's what can happen, and that's the danger of holding too much, where you might think, okay, well, it's not going to, it's equipment, it's not going to fall apart, it's not going to go off,
exactly,
use by date.
Yeah.
But if you don't have customers,
no,
you got no business.
So it's a really tricky thing. And one of the interesting stories I always think about with stock is a guy many years ago in the 90s, a guy named Lionel McGowan had a tyre business in Gundawinny. I'm sure it won't mind me mentioning his name now. And what he used to do, because he was in Gundawinny, and when he started that business in the 70s or 80s, to get a tyre for a farm equipment would take 3 or 4 days to come from Melbourne or Sydney. So when he got one, he'd buy 2. And when he made profit, he would put his money not in the bank, but into stock. So when we came to sell that business, he had a lot of stock. But a lot of the stock he had was weird stuff, weird one-off tyres and for agricultural or road earth-moving equipment, that sort of stuff. So the buyer didn't want to buy all that old stock. But the seller knew this is what keeps my customers coming back, because when the harvest is broken down in the paddock and they need that tyre, they're going to pay me today's value for that tyre, and I've paid half that price for it sitting there. So that's why it's better than money in the bank. So he keeps the customer and makes a huge profit when he actually does physically sell that tyre. But the buyer was thinking, I'm not buying that crap, never sell it. So we're able to figure out a way which worked for both the buyer and the seller, which is what we did was this. Lionel took all that stock and put it into a separate shed which he owned. And whenever the new owner of the business needed a particular rare tyre, they'd buy it off Lionel at the current cost price, so he would make profit on it, and they would retail it to the customer, so they kept the customer. It's a great way to do it. Yeah. Also save the buyer stamp duty, which is 3% on about $850,000 worth of stock. Back in the 90s, was a lot of money. So, but managing stock, and also when you're transitioning the business ownership, how you deal with that stock, it can't just always be, here's the stock, take it or leave it. We need to figure out ways that work for both the buyer and seller for the stock ownership to transition.
Absolutely. So this is where I think technology really plays a critical role. So
yes,
anyone that's in a business where stock's involved, you've either got to have an ERP system, so an enterprise resource planning system, which is mainly if you're in manufacturing or large-scale sort of wholesale distribution, or you have some sort of an inventory management system, a digital one, that allows you to understand at any point in time, what have you got in stock, how much is that stock worth, what's moving, what's not moving, what's the age of the stock that you've got in
stock turn
in place, stock turn, and ideally it's got to have the ability to future forecast as well. So you could say, okay, let's use predictive analytics to say, okay, in the past 3 years, these have been the trends, what are the patterns, so that we can predict what's happening in the future.
Exactly.
Now, obviously, prediction using technology, great assault, because we all know that a drought, for example, could come and that just wipes out all our predictions because, well, no one's going to buy if there's no rain in the industries, for example, or another COVID hit. But we've got to use technology so that we can have the visibility. The other thing with stock control is don't give everybody access to stock control in your organization. It shouldn't be a free-for-all. Anyone can order anything. There's got to be a set process of people who are in control, who manage it. And lastly, if you're buying products, adjust the prices, monitor the prices. And again, it goes back to having
you've got to keep it moving.
Because a good inventory or ERP system will flag it. The product comes in, you scan the barcode, and it will say, you've just bought this for $1 a unit. Last time you bought these for 80 cents. It's gone up by 20 cents. Your sale price was $1.20. Recommendation, adjusted to $1.40 so that you're still making margins. That's really important.
So using technology has so many benefits. So first of all, when I had my service station, I first started, no technology application. I used to put into stock what I thought people wanted. Boy, was I wrong. No one wanted what I wanted.
Have you heard the fishing analogy?
No.
This is this little fishing story.
Yeah.
Fisherman goes down and he's fishing, and someone comes by, a passerby comes by, and the passerby is like, "Got any luck?" And the fisherman's like, "No, for some strange reason, fish aren't biting." Passerby's like, "Oh, what are you using for bait?" It's like, "I'm using strawberries." And the passerby's like, "Why are you using strawberries?" And the fisherman's like, "Well, I like strawberries." You know,
I love strawberries.
I love strawberries. Fish must love strawberries. I love strawberries, you know. So,
Yeah.
and I think that's
Wrong
the
bait.
thing where you use the wrong bait, as in we've got the wrong product.
Yeah.
We've assumed that what we want is
We're not the same as everybody else.
That's right.
And I made that mistake. And then inventory management systems told me to put all this crap in that I didn't want to sell, baked beans and, garbage that I didn't like. And it sold like crazy.
Yeah.
And,
At inflated prices.
exactly. And the magazines that I thought about customers wanted, I was wrong.
Yeah.
They wanted surfing and gardening magazines. I just thought they wanted car and motorcycle magazines. I was wrong.
Yeah.
So using the system not only does that, but gives you that predictability and gives you the ability to set prices. And I've learned this really interesting thing. So, when Officeworks came into the market, Office Choice and Office National were threatened. And what they realised after a while was that the model that Officeworks uses, and same with Bunnings, is very clever. If you want to get a GP of, say, 30% across the range, you can sell stuff as a loss leader, and the pros program will the algorithm will calculate what every GP should be based on what sells.
That's right.
So you put this to 70%, you put this at 15%, and overall you get 30% based on the sales mix. So a lot of people don't know that or lose sight of that. And the other thing is they don't keep their data up to date. So you could have a great inventory management system, but if you don't do regular stock takes and correct that, your holding stock and the value of it, and reassess it and analyze it, you could be losing money.
Big time. So one of the biggest mistakes that I see is a business with no inventory management in place. They use pieces of paper like the manufacturing business that I've done before.
Yeah, right.
Big mistake. They put in an ERP system to manage everything. Great. They think, okay, that's all we need to do.
We're done. Yeah.
We're done.
Wrong.
But they haven't implemented barcoding. So barcoding allows for the automation of things to update stock control and numbers. They haven't added in automated price control, which is what you said. So overall, let's say I want a 30% GP. You can programmatically program it into the system so that when the purchase price changes, it automatically changes the retail price or the wholesale price or whatever it might be. It automatically captures it. And the third thing, this is a big, big mistake, is let's say you've implemented all of those. You believe that you don't need to do any more physical stock takes.
Yes.
And people get that wrong because systems can be incorrect. Things aren't scanned properly.
Yeah.
People steal.
Correct. In service stations and bottle shops, if you don't do a stock take, you don't know how much you're getting robbed.
Yep.
So people don't do that. You've got to do it. And
So absolutely critical. So put in place the right system, set it up the right way, and don't forget about physical stock take.
But two more things about stock quickly. One, it's not just when you get the data and you analyse it, you can figure out, okay, this is our loss leader or this is what gets them into the store. Now knowing that, where is it positioned? What time of the day does this stuff sell for? What else can I put beside that to up my sales? So, for example, if you're selling a lot of coffee between 11 and 12 in the morning, put it at the back of the store, get people through, put cinnamon buns or something else beside it to up those sales. You can change the way you operate your business just by analysing those stock reports. That's the first thing. Second thing, and this is a big one, just want to touch on it quickly with stock. A lot of people don't do a stock take at the end of the financial year and they just round it off. And if they round it up, they're paying tax that artificially inflates the profit. The tax record says they make this much profit, but it might be less, and they're paying tax when they might not need to. Or alternatively, if the stock is recorded lower than it really is, you're going to show lower profits than the business is really making, which might affect your ability to borrow, might affect your mental state. You might think I'm making less money than I really am, and might affect your ability to sell the business in the future. And the last thing about that is that if you accurately record your stock, closing stock, and you really know what's going on in your business, you're going to be able to better manage your business.
Absolutely.
A lot of people don't do that, Pete.
Yeah.
They don't realise how important the opening and closing stock is to the way the profit is reported. So
it'd be interesting to, as part of this video and podcast, have a link to a downloadable example. We could do a mathematical
Yeah.
example, people are looking and go, okay, well, here's different variations.
I just did one.
Yeah?
Yeah, I did. For a suspension company. So maybe we can put a link to that. Yeah. Yeah, it makes a huge difference.
Yep.
In fact, the difference between the what they thought was a closing stock and the real closing stock increased the value of their business from $400,000 to over $700,000 by just correcting the proper closing stock in there.
That's almost double.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Mm.
Amazing difference.
Yep.
So stock is a absolute dynamic minefield that if we manage it properly can make us a lot of money and can save us some nightmares. And if we don't manage it properly, we can be losing money and not know what we're doing.
Absolutely.
Making bad decisions.
Yep. Asset or liability.
Yeah.
Depends on your decisions.
And how you manage it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks, Pete. See you next time.
See you next time.